If I've ever seen a candidate for heaven, it was her. It was her. I want to, I guess, talk about what happened with Anna. It's 6 months today, and a lot of people don't know what happened. I don't want to go into like crazy specific details because she was such a private person. I valued her privacy. I respected her privacy. She valued her privacy. So I don't want to go into me specific details, but I do want to talk about her faith. Her faith was um, so impressive. It was so monumental during this whole um, battle against cancer. I can't overstate that enough. She was amazing. It was 2 years ago in March. This last March, it was 2 years ago. I come home from work and she had found the lump, and it was huge. I mean, honestly, my first instinct was it was a cyst, and I thought, hey, easy fix. She had a that was on a it was on a Wednesday. She had an appointment on a Friday. That Friday they ordered a biopsy for the next Monday. Next Monday we find ourselves at Jefferson County Hospital having a biopsy, and the cyst actually burst, and we were kind of relieved. It's just a cyst. Um, a little funny story that come from that moment was I was in the lobby forever. They gave me an amount of time, and I don't remember what it was, but it was almost triple that, to the point I was getting concerned. And the nurse finally come out and she said the cyst burst and she's still bleeding, and we're just having her hold a piece of gauze to it till it stops bleeding. I said, I don't mean to be rude. I was like, I was getting hangry, and I said, I don't mean to be rude, but can she do that in the car? And the nurse made this like little face, and I was like, I didn't mean to offend you. If that's all we're doing, can we go? And she goes, you didn't offend me. It's just your wife said the same thing. And so she was ready to go too. We were a little bit relieved. We got out of there. It wasn't probably 3 days later they called and said that there was a tumor inside that cyst, and she had cancer. And we, almost immediately met with an oncologist at UT, and they gave us a plan. She said, these plans are designed specifically to you, and they lined up, basically 1 through 10. This is what we're going to do, and these are the results we hope to see. And I want to tell you, man, it's just like none of it came to pass. I mean, we just hit obstacle after obstacle right from the beginning. Come to find out, she had a very rare form of cancer. It was less than 1% of all breast cancers gets this diagnosis, and she had it. We found that out later, of course, after going through a gauntlet. But first was chemo. Chemo was just absolutely exhausting to her. I mean, it just took. If you know anybody on chemo, man, they just be patient with them, help them, love them, encourage them. And I know it hits. They've got a lot of different chemos, and it hits different people different. It hits people differently, but man, just love on them, because man, that was so tough to watch her go through. The whole time during this beginning process, we just thought things were going to be okay. Like, we just thought everything's going to be all right. We're going to battle this, and we're going to get past it. And she, more than anybody, she never needed reassurance. She never needed a pep talk. She was at every single appointment. She had her head held high. She started losing her hair. It didn't bother her. I mean, she did get some wigs to go out, but I mean, honestly, it just didn't. She'd throw a hat on and just go about her business. I mean, she wasn't ashamed. I mean, she was in battle mode. She was, it's easy to say, this is the toughest person, She was the toughest person. the battle, you know, it would just take so much out of us as a family. And I mean, she just balled her fist up and stared at it. But we did the chemo, we did the surgery. Once she had the surgery, that's when they found out it was that rare type of cancer. We had already been to Vanderbilt for a second opinion, and honest to goodness, you know, we were on the path that Vanderbilt would have been on. We were comfortable with her treatment after that point, you know, but the she moved into radiation at that point, and the radiation was the worst out of the chemo, the surgery put together. The radiation, I mean, radiation was brutal. I mean, they literally went scorched earth on that whole area. I believe in my heart those doctors knew how bad it was, and they just wasn't alarming us. I think they were hopeful they could get it. And at that point, she was cancer free. Like, there was no cancer detected. They do a blood test, and I mean, there was nothing detected at all. She was doing this chemo pill after radiation, and then she was doing this immunotherapy, and it confused us. I mean, we're cancer free. Why are they still being so aggressive? What is going on? And I don't feel like that was clearly communicated to us. And maybe they were just hopeful they could keep it at bay, or keep it away, and it wouldn't come back. But like I said, deep in my heart, I really feel like they knew what was going to happen. We went and celebrated her being cancer free. I told her, I said, point anywhere on this globe, point, and we're going. And I was like, we'll burn up every credit card they'll give us. We're going to go. And she said, I don't need a map. We're going to Grand Canyon. And I started looking at flights, and she said, we ain't flying. I said, baby girl, we got like 6-7 days. We can't. It's a 3-day drive. And she goes, okay. And we drove to the Grand Canyon. I mean, that was that. We had such a good trip. It was just good. I mean, I mean, every state had its own adventure. You know, we got into New Mexico, and we just kind of realized we far from home. I mean, we are far away from home. But when we got to the Grand Canyon, I remember just getting just tears in my eyes watching her and the boys look out. Like, I wasn't even really paying attention to Grand Canyon. I was watching them. Like, I was so thankful we got there and had that time. We went to a cabin when we got back, and she is done with the immunotherapy, and I think she had like 2 more doses of that chemo pill left, maybe 3. We were done. We were done with treatments, and we were at this cabin. I remember her doing cannonballs into this swimming pool, and she was having a great time. And I mean, we were relaxed and happy, and a little bit of a sigh of relief that it was almost over. You know, you're talking reconstruction surgery and moving on with your life at that point. And it was early June. She got a phone call. I'll never forget this phone call, like the sound that she made. But she got this phone call, and it was a blood test had come back bad, and she had got a scan, and it spread into her lungs, and about 25% of her both lungs were covered with cancer. It broke us. I mean, we mourned. I mean, they handed us a death sentence, and we mourned. And I want to tell you what, I didn't snap out of it, and she did. She went back into fight mode. She rolled her sleeves up, you know, and it's hard for a pastor to say somebody's got stronger faith than you. You know, like, I've seen the miracle of somebody being lost to be saved. I mean, I've seen beautiful things. I've witnessed beautiful things that the Lord has done in people's lives. I've watched people walk away from a life of sin. I've seen people get clean from drugs and alcohol. I've seen people, their families restored. I've seen beautiful things. And I was just so stuck in the darkness at that point. The thought of losing her. I mean, we were coming up on our 16th anniversary. I mean, we grew up together. Like, you don't commit that much life to of your life to somebody just to lose them. I mean, it's the thought of it was just petrifying, and I could not come out of that darkness. I couldn't, but she did. She should not have been the one encouraging me. That shouldn't happen. But she was so strong. She was so strong, and we got an appointment down in MD Anderson in Texas. Her parents took her, and they went off, and me and the boys stayed here. They were in school, and she did not get a good prognosis. And I remember I was sitting in a restaurant. The boys were in school, and I was sitting in a restaurant. Found a quiet place just to listen in on the doctor's visit. And the boys, like I said, they were in school, and the doctor flat out told her, this is gonna spread, and it's gonna take your life. And they said they were gonna try to get her in some clinical trials and see if she was eligible. They were gonna try to find some closer to home, but she was gonna have to relocate to Texas. And we had decisions to make. And before she even made the decision, she come home. She was ready to come home. And honestly, like, she made the best decision, because I believe she got home on a Sunday night or a Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And by Friday, the symptoms showed that it was spreading to her brain. She was making necklaces and bracelets with the boys. We still have them, but she was making these necklaces and bracelets with the boys, and her vision went blurred, and she started to get a headache. And I remember the frustration. She slammed that stuff down and went and took a nap. She was very angry, and rightfully so. I mean, we'd already been through hell. And the next day she woke up, and she took a Goodies powder, got some caffeine, and she felt better. And by that night, Saturday night, it was worse. Sunday, she didn't go to church. Her head was hurting again. She kind of went through the same process, tried to fight back the headaches. And I was working night shift at the time. I had to go in at 11 o'clock at night. And I told her, I said, if you're not feeling better in the morning, we're going to the doctor. And she goes, okay, we'll see. I said, no, we won't see. You're going to the doctor. And she just smiled, and I left. By 6 o'clock in the morning, her mom was calling, telling me I needed to come home. She was, the pain, and like I said, I'm not going to give a lot of detail, but the pain was so excruciating, she was throwing up blood. That's how excruciating the pain was. We went to the ER, and they couldn't get the pain knocked down. And I know they've got to go through a process to get that pain knocked down, but she was in more pain than I've ever seen anybody in. I mean, it was excruciating. And to tell you, you feel helpless when your loved one is like that. I hope nobody ever has to see a loved one go through that where you can't help them. There's nothing you can do. I mean, they're just in pain. And finally, they got her kind of some medicines dialed in. The doctor came in and said, we're going to do a scan of her brain. They brought her back in. We waited, it felt like an eternity, but it was a couple hours. I remember I went to the lobby for something, and I came back, and the doctor was standing outside the room. And I said, you need to talk to me? And he goes, well, I need to talk to everybody, but I was going to wait on you. And you could tell by his face he was shook. I walked in, and they said that the cancer had spread to her brain, and she had multiple lesions on her brain. that was causing the pain. And they started her on a steroids regimen to get the swelling down, to get her out of pain. They took her to the ICU because they needed to stabilize her. And like you hear these words on TV, on the news broadcast, you don't, like when they're hitting you in your face about your person, you're just like, what do we got to do? We go to the ICU and they were fantastic. They were all over it. I mean, they went, I feel like they went above and beyond. When they told us that the cancer had spread to her brain, she didn't even let a tear out. Rest of us was bawling, and she just stood there, or she had laid there, and she was just looking it right in the face and not scared. I had told her when we got back from Texas, I said, I know what I'm going through, and I know the hurt that I'm facing, and I know the fears that I'm facing. But tell me what's going on in your mind. Tell me. Talk to me. And we laid there and we talked. And I said, I cannot imagine hearing the drum beat in the distance, knowing that it's coming. Like I can't fathom it. And I woke up in the morning and she had her hands on her hips and she stared at me. She goes, I don't hear no drum beat. I said, excuse, I forgot we had that particular, when I wake up, I'm not sharp. I'm not sharp when I'm not sharp most of the day, but when I wake up, I'm extra not sharp. I woke up and she said, I don't hear no drum beat. It's going to be okay. And I said, if you honestly feel like it's going to be okay, I'm with you. She took that attitude this whole time, thinking and hoping that it was just going to be okay, that God was going to heal her and she was going to get a miracle and we were going to go on and be fine. And when she got that news in the ICU, she wasn't shook. Or the emergency room, she wasn't shook. We got to the ICU and she was progressively failing her neurological tests. She lost the ability to use her left hand. She was having trouble walking. They came to us and they said, we're going to try whole brain radiation. We're going to try to back this off. She was going to be honest with you. This will probably get her past the holidays. To us, if they can give you a quality of life and let you have these holidays with us one more, we were all about it. We didn't want her in pain. We didn't want her suffering. But they tried it. They tried the whole brain radiation. I think she went 3 times, and we were sitting in the room and the nurse came in all chipper and happy and she said, Mr. Maples, there's some paper. Y'all rushed in here and there's some paperwork and we need you to fill it out. Could you step out with me? And I did. And I stepped out and that door closed and nobody was smiling. And she handed me the phone and it was her doctor. And she said, she's not going to make it. And you need to take her home. Radiation wasn't working. I walked in and I tried not to tell her, but I guess when you're married for somebody for 16 years and known them your whole life, you know when something's wrong. And she goes, just tell me. I said, it's time to take you home. It's over. I called her dad, called my parents. We got her home and, thankfully the hospice came and set up and the steroids kicked in and got that swelling off of her brain. And she got her use of her limbs back. She was able to walk from room to room. And she had 4 or 5 really good days. And everything it almost felt normal, And then it was just, It was just one day she fell, and it progressively over the next 36 hours got worse. And it was November 16th. The hospice nurse stood over and she said that she started the dying process and then she'll be gone within the next 3 to 5 days. And while she was still talking, with that sentence fresh on her lips, while she was still talking, she breathed her last breath. She went peaceful. She was resting. She was sleeping. There was no suffering. It was honestly the most brutal process. It was terrible, and we didn't share a lot because Anna didn't want to. She did, for whatever reason. She valued her privacy, and we respected that. But what this girl went through for a 16 to 18 month process, what this girl faced, and to not lose her faith, to not lose her joy, to not lose the battle inside of her. Like, people need to know that you can have that kind of faith too. Like, people need to know that, like, there's actual Bible believing Christians among us that have stared down death and not flinched. She didn't flinch. And I'm not just saying this for the benefit of the boys. I'm not saying this to do anything other than I witnessed our faith under the worst of circumstances. I witnessed our faith firsthand, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I can't say I would have been that strong. I can't say I know another Christian that would have been that strong. She never stopped praying. She never chose bitterness. We were in the ICU, and I'm getting ready to be done, but we were in the ICU, and it was late at night, and we talked. We recapped our whole life. Those steroids were kicking in. She wasn't sleeping anytime soon, and I pulled a chair up beside her and lounged back, and we talked for hours. You know, we figured out most of our issues in marriage was perspective problems, pettiness, bad roommate stuff we could have talked about 10 years ago and wouldn't have been a big deal to fix, you know. And it's not that we had a bad life. We were drama free. We had the aggravations that most people do, but we didn't have a bad life. And we talked about it all. We both made apologies. We both shared memories. But the next day, when we knew it was over, we brought the boys in because we weren't 100% convinced we were going to get to take her home. And we brought the boys in, and I had to watch her tell them goodbye. And I'm honest to goodness, I could have took that hospital apart brick by brick. I mean, I honest to goodness, I had so much rage and hurt, and I was pacing. I took them back out in the hallway, and I was pacing for a second in the room, and I had my fists clenched, and she looked up at me, and she did this. She was weak, but she did this. She goes, "No darkness, only light." You just sit there and told our kids you was going to heaven, and we told them what heaven's going to be like, and that mama's going to be okay, and we'll see her again, and you did. She's comforted me. Who does that? You know what I mean? Who does that? Like, it was just, I look back on it and I just realize, man, she's a hero. I mean, she is one of the heroes the Bible talks about. lived her faith in the darkest, quietest of moments when nobody was looking. She never faltered and she never failed. She never, ever turned her back on God. She always hoped for the best outcome. And even when they told her it was over, she didn't falter. People need to know that. People need to know that there was somebody walking among them that was able to live it out. And you are too. We have the opportunity to exercise our faith every single day. And it's doable. I wish there were so many people that helped us. Even right at the beginning, even. I'm telling you, one of the first person, the first person I told, and I can't name every name. Do we have time? Okay, I can't name every name. I can't. It would be irresponsible to try because I would leave somebody out. I'm telling you, when I say the community came out to help, the community came out to help. The Gibbs community, the Maynardville community. I am telling you. I mean, it was, and it wasn't even limited to that. I mean, people rallied around the boys. They rallied around me, but especially they rallied around Anna. But the first person I told outside of our immediate family was a fellow named Tim Dyer. I've coached baseball with him for years, Tim and Crystal Dyer, and I told him. And I said, Anna has breast cancer, and we're meeting with the oncologist, and I don't have answers, but I need prayer. And I'm around a bunch of kids, and I was like, watch my tone. Make sure I'm not taking this out on kids unexpectedly, because I didn't want to be a 1980s baseball coach. I didn't want to use children as my free therapy, so I didn't want to do that with all my heart. And Tim, a few days later, he goes, he met with me and the baseball president, a really good friend of mine, Josh Schwartz. They cornered me and they said, we want to have a benefit for you and Anna. And I was like, no, I've got insurance. We'll be okay. And Tim's like, you could tell, Tim's like, bless your heart. You have no idea what's coming. And I didn't. And Tim, they got this benefit together, and I'm telling you, it was hundreds of people came out to help. They sold food. We had baseball games, softball games. I even got in a dunk tank and chalked trash to like half the community. It was a spectacle. I mean, it was a day, and I just kept looking over at Tim. I was like, I don't know how to thank you. Like, I didn't know how to thank him. I didn't know. There's not sufficient words. And you know, if you're going through a similar situation, man, the only thing I can encourage you to do is listen to the wisdom around you. I'm glad I swallowed my pride and listened to wisdom, because we went through a gauntlet and we did everything we could to save her. There was no stone left unturned. There was no research unread or unwatched. I found myself watching a conference with Anna one day, and I was so engaged with it, I was getting mad. And like, if it had been a live conference, I think I'd have drove down there and argued with them. They were talking about early detection. We detected this thing so early, it wasn't even funny, and everybody told us they would have done the same treatment. So why you care about early detection when you just want to do the same treatment? We want a cure, we want a better treatment plan for this. And I was getting so angry, and again, she just stood there so patient, so loving. But the people that took care of our boys during this time, and encouraged them, my parents, Anna's parents, Anna's sister Mandy, they took care of us, took care of the boys. I don't know how anybody could face something like this without I can't imagine facing life without my parents, especially what we went through with her parents and my parents. It was just, it's hard to describe. It's hard to describe how special that was, and how they showed up. I'd have gave anything in the world to save her, and we just couldn't. And I don't have answers of why, but I do know somehow, some way, God will get the glory. If you look throughout, and I said this at her funeral, but if you'll look throughout the biblical stories, there's some people that lived out some terrible times, some hard times. But in the Bible, we have the pleasure of being able to see the beginning of the story, middle of the story, and the end of the story. We don't get to see the end of this story for quite some time, but I am positive we will look back and we'll see the glory of God. It's just, I can't see it right now. And I can't say that I'm overwhelmed with joy. I am not. I am, I still struggle with why. Why her? Why did this have to happen? But we won't have those answers. And to continue on in the faith, you have to be able to say, as we see in the book of Job, he gives and he takes away. But blessed be the name of the Lord. That's what we have to do. You move forward day to day. You bring glory to the Lord. You find joy again. Not every day is bad. Life is continuing on. And unfortunately, we are not whole. But we'll see her again. I'm convinced we'll see her again, because I'm telling you, I've never seen, if I've ever seen a candidate for heaven, it was her. It was her.